Let's spend a few minutes to talk about Revelation's views, or views of the book of Revelations. There are really four views of the book of Revelations. And one of them is called the futurist view. And that kind of self-explanatory a little bit, isn't it? That has to do with the future. This view believes most of the book's unfulfilled still, and it refers to the end of time. Christ is going to return to the earth. There will be 1,000-year literal reign in Jerusalem, hidden, sitting on the throne of David. There will be what's called a rapture and this tribulation. There's going to be a literal battle of Armageddon. So the futurist view, yet to come in the future. There's a preterist view, and that was a word that from the Latin, and most was fulfilled in 70 AD is the belief of this view, that the book of Revelation, according to this view, really was fulfilled in 70 AD. This view believes the symbols and the signs apply to the fall of Judaism and the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem and things of that nature. There's another view, the third view, called historical view, which is a view that this is just a book of a timeline of history, that somehow symbolically it's telling us what would happen. There would be churches and nations and other movements, and this is just a timeline of history. And finally, there's what you could call the contextual view, or the historical view of that first century church. And the main theme of this view is, what did it mean to the church at that time? What did it mean to the first century people when it was wrote? And it deals with trials and sufferings that they were facing. Specifically, those seven churches is what this believes, or this view believes, and this is a book encouraging them to be faithful to death, and that victory will be theirs, or salvation. So there's our four views. Now this futurist view, again, most of it is still to come in the future to be fulfilled. And John wrote in Revelations that the things would soon come to pass in the times at hand. So we're just calling your attention to that as we think about which one of these views is correct. And John said these things would soon come to pass. In Revelations 1, the first 3 verses, he said the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave to him to show to his servants the things that must soon take place. He made it known by sending his angel to his servant John, who bore witness to the word of God and to the testimony of Jesus Christ, even to all that he saw. Blessed is the one who reads aloud the words of this prophecy, and blessed are those who hear and who keep what is written in it, for the time is near. So it's soon to take place, and the time is near, is what John said. So if the futurist view is correct, it wouldn't have really been relevant to the churches at that time that he was writing to. It wouldn't have been comforting to them and kind of confusing that it would say soon to take place and at hand, if that's the correct view. Now that preterist view, let's take a quick look at it. And again, that one says it was all fulfilled in 70 AD. So what John was saying was soon to come was fulfilled in 70 AD according to this view. But for that to be true, the book would have had to have been written before 70 AD, wouldn't it? Wouldn't make sense for John to be writing later and say it's going to come, it's soon to be here. So things are still future while John is writing. And evidence is showing that it seems about 96 AD is when this book was wrote. Certainly later than 70 AD. So it seems there's a problem with this view, that it just cannot be preterist view, because the book was written quite a time after 70 AD. The historical view, again, just that it's a timeline of nations and histories and rises and falls and things, and again, would not really be relevant or comforting to the first century church. It's just something to think about. That in itself doesn't eliminate that as a possibility, but think about the comfort John's trying to write to them, and he's talking about just a history lesson in future wouldn't really be comforting. And finally, the contextual view, again, is saying a belief that this was written to those seven churches, that it was something they were going to be facing, and to build them up. it would fit the phrase that it would soon take place, if that was true, that it was for those 7 churches. And it would explain why John was writing it to them. Hey, this is to you 7 churches and what you're about to face and things of that nature. So he who has an ear to hear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. This was, again, specifically to the churches. So we're just, again, throwing out 4 views. I want you to be aware that there's not like one cut and dry belief of the book of Revelations. You might not be aware of that. Pretty popular teaching by some religious groups. They seem to focus a lot on Revelation. Just want you to be aware there's different views. And again, there's a futurist view. It'll be in the future. Preterist, that it's 70 AD already fulfilled, that it's just a history timeline, and finally a view that it was really relevant to the churches at that time. We will do future studies on Revelation. This was our first introduction to kind of expose you to things about the book.